All right, so what's going on, guys? Welcome to a quick video I want to put out on something I've been calling the cycle low framework. It's how I trade alts. It's how I've been viewing alts for the past few months. And really, it's going to give you a different way to look at trading alts as well. And the reason that I use a framework or have some set of rules that I want to be using for finding alt setups, for understanding what I'm targeting with alt setups, and also managing my risk is it makes the approach more systematic. It's something that you can replicate. It's something that you can stay consistent with. And then it also helps you filter out. If you're looking at ideas, you're not necessarily just looking at what's hot on Twitter or looking for some catalyst this week or looking at one chart that stands out. It's looking at the entire alt market cap as a whole. And then from that, being able to determine, this group of alts probably has the lowest price risk, meaning, if Bitcoin and alts, all of a sudden the trend changes and things start going lower, the risk is probably less, or the downside is probably less playing some of the cycle low setups. At the exact same time, it's also helping identify some coins that I think have greater potential to move higher until their first resistance. Right? So the framework not only is helping managing risk, but it's also helping find a ton of setups that have been working really all of December, especially in January and February. Right, so there's a cycle low framework. First, I'm going to go through what a cycle low even is, and then we'll look at just the basic setup, something that you can apply to your own setups. And then we'll look at 3 or 4 coins that has worked over and over and over again. And then we'll look at what happens when it doesn't work and how it manages risk. Right, it's probably the most important video I've put out in a long time in terms of alt trading. I think it'll add a ton of value. If you did enjoy it, slap a subscribe down there in the bottom left. Bottom right, it's over there in that corner. Also like, comment, let me know what you want to see, and share it on Twitter. I'll be sure to thank you personally if you do. Appreciate it, guys. Let's jump into it. You really only need to understand about 3 things to be able to find these cycle low setups, to understand what a cycle low framework is, and to understand why it works. Right? After that, it's really quite simple. You'll be able to look at a group of alts, say, this one, and this one look more attractive than this random alt, and then you'll also be able to execute, right? Just with the simple rules. Obviously, you can add what you like or take away what you think doesn't make sense, but this basic framework is literally what I'm using on a daily basis, and it's still finding 1 or 2 swings that work just this week, right? So the first big idea you need to understand is alts move together. Right? It's a very highly correlated market, especially for alts. So if 1 or 2 or 3 alts is moving up versus Bitcoin, it probably means 90 or 95% of other alts are also moving up versus Bitcoin. Sure, there's 1 or 2 outliers that happen, but generally that's how it happens. Alts trend down versus Bitcoin together, and they also trend up versus Bitcoin together. What that leads to is they also bottom out and top out on usually around the same time period. For bottoms, it's usually almost on the exact same date, right? For about 9 out of every 10 alts. So, understanding that it's a macro game and understanding that they trend or trade together, the only other concept you need to understand is support and resistance, right? No fancy indicators, no crazy complex, new words or coins I'm terming. It's just support and resistance, right? Support being where price is being kind of bought up or demand is stepping in, resistance being where selling pressure is stepping in also, right? So we'll jump into it. I'm going to show on the chart just a quick example of what this would look like. So most alts, as you guys are aware of in 2018, has been a bear trend. Most alts have been trending down, right? And really until around September 12th, I'll show you on all the examples, is when most of them bottomed out, right? So a lot of alts found a bottom on a date right on September 12th, right? And then for about 30 or 45 days, they trended up until around December or so. Right? And then they've trended back down, and now they're finding bottoms again, right? And the reason that the cycle low framework makes so much sense, or the reason that I'm using it, and I'll show you guys with the examples, is almost every single alt is bottoming out on that September 12th date, right? I'll click on like 10 different examples, but they all bottom out in the September 12th. September 12th is just an important date to keep in your mind. So September 12th. Now what happens is, if that is kind of the most depressed alts have been, is this September 12th date, meaning alts were trending down, it's been a bear market, and sure, they could go lower again, but currently that's the current cycle low, right, for most alts. So what that means is that's the most depressed they were in whatever market environment we were seeing, right? That's the most kind of sold off they got. So that forms a nice reference point, that cycle low point, that now going forward, you can kind of look at a group of alts, and maybe one alt is up here, maybe another alt is right along this September 12th cycle low. Maybe another alt is, up in here. And of these three alts at these random three prices, this one is obviously going to be the one I want to move into because it's right along cycle low support, meaning it's right at the price where most alts were very depressed, including its own kind of alt price. Right? So how this will work, and just the really simple rule set of once this September 12th low is identified, right, and you find an alt along the September 12th low, generally I'm going to look to set up a coin like this. Right? We're going to have our entry. Entry is going to be around here. Right? As close to this September 12th cycle low support as we can get. Right? The stop, or where this trade would be invalidated, if all of a sudden you start having daily closes below the September 12th swing low, right? To me, that would be an invalidation or a stop loss, right? Where you would be wrong on the trade. So your risk is very clearly identified and managed. And then where I'd be targeting is generally the next swing high. Right, so I'm just targeting swing highs up here. Right, that's a really, really simple framework of once this September 12th low has been established, right? You don't need to look for some crazy data on the chart. It's September 12th right now. That's it. Sure, there might be a new cycle low if alts start to trend down again, but for right now, that's it. Right? So we'll dive into like 4 or 5 different coins. I'll show you how literally this exact pattern is showing up on every single one of them, and then how for the past month or two, I've been taking advantage of it, and how I think you can take advantage of it in March and going forward if alts continue to give nice opportunities. So now I'm just going to go through a list of 4 or 5 different alts so you can see for yourself how this September 12th date is so important. Right? So here's a random chart. It's DOC versus BTC, the altcoin DOC. Right? You have the trend down obviously in 2018, ridiculous bear market, and now, like 90% of other alts, this found a bottom on August or September 12th, right to the date. So I'm going to mark September 12th there. I'm just going to draw a horizontal line where that cycle low support is. Right, that's the cycle low. You could even take it from that August date. Right, it's pretty much the exact same level. Right, so I'm just going to use this box to denote support going across. Obviously, I don't know that this is going to be a cycle low back in September. This is something that I kind of clued in on December, January, and this month as well. It's working out quite nice. Right, so that's the first chart I'm going to show with DOC. You can see September 12th is where this thing found an all-time low or found a bottom. Not every single alt's going to show that, but I'll kind of show why 9 or 10 out of every alt is. Right, so here's another random one. I'm just going to pick Loom. Been in a crazy bear market. Right, where did it find a bottom? Literally right on September 12th. It's the lowest tick on the entire chart. Just draw a quick support. Draw this little box over, denoting that's the cycle low support. Right. Once again, another random alt chart. This is the exact bottom on September 12th. Right. And now in December, and January, and February, right, this is showing kind of the best entry or where kind of price is most depressed. It's a nice reference point to where it's probably the best price. So that's just another one. We'll look at Mana, and then after I identify all these guys, we'll look at how I would actually set these up and how I traded a few of them. And we could also look at a few that are still at cycle lows, which I think present nice opportunities. All right, so here's September 12th, lowest close on that day. All right, that's the cycle low. We're just going to drag this across. Here is September 12th to the day. That's our cycle low support. And you can see once again in February, January, that was the best price you're going to buy it at. MFT, this is a pretty popular coin, right? We have the massive bear market. Then September 12th or August, right? Sometimes they come in August 14th. Most of them are going to be around September 12th. Right? So even if you kind of draw both of them, you call this that cycle low. Right? Draw this across. Here's just another chart showing that September 12th is the bottom or the local bottom, right? It doesn't have to be the bottom going forward. Once again, QSP, nasty bear market. Where did it find a bottom? To the day, September 12th. Right. draw a little support across. Once again, cycle low support September 12th. You can see for the past 2 months, that's been just the best price to buy, right? Using one day, it's finding the reference point for all these different alts. RCN, another one that I traded, right? Either August or September 12th, right? So immediately when I'm looking at any new alt chart, my eyes are automatically going to lock on to September 12th, right? Obviously the ones that I'm showing, some are still at September 12th cycle lows, some have already moved higher, but the examples I'm going to show, regardless of one that's moved higher, there's plenty. I mean, there's 10, 20, 50 coins that are still sitting along cycle lows, right? So those are all the coins that are still at cycle lows. Now, how would I set these up? I'm going to go through exact examples of ones that I've traded, how you would actually set this up. Once you identify this is cycle low support, if you see price sitting like the example at the beginning of the video, right? In January and February, 2 or 3 times this sits right on cycle low support. If you look at another random alt, maybe it's priced up here relative to its September 12th low. So if I look at, a random alt versus RCN in January and February, right, this one along cycle lows is going to make the most sense to me. And I'll show you before and after of some setups that I had, and then we'll go through how it's working out, where I'm aiming for, and then what happens if it doesn't work. Now that we've seen, 4 or 5 different examples of alts showing that September 12th exact same bottom, exact same chart setup, and then going forward now in January, February, and currently in March, that obviously if you could buy cycle lows, that's going to be the most attractive buy for a lot of coins. All right, so I'm going to look at, this is the basic framework, or this is what's working. I'm going to now show 3 or 4 different coins that I've actually traded in January and February and how they played out, right, with the setup before and after, right? So the first one I'm going to show right here is Mana. You can see the setup exact same as the example setup. And this looks so simple that some people are going to be like, that's ridiculous. That's not going to be something you can apply. September 12th, right? That's the date you're focused on right here. Right? September 12th happens, and then just mark that going across. Any coin that's showing it's still at the September 12th low, right? This is where you want to be entering as close as you can to the September 12th low support. Just targeting kind of my day 1 or hour 4 swing highs, right? And if price does move down and closes below this cycle low, I'm stopped out, right? So let's look at 3 or 4 different setups, or how I've played this now for the past few months. Mana is one. Mana BTC. You have our September 12th low right here on the chart, right? Price was sitting right at September 12th low. Where do I put my stop? Right? My stop's going to be right below the September 12th low. That's where the stop is. Where am I targeting? Day 1 swing highs, right? For a nice little 30-40% move up to 1,300 sats. So let's just see how Mana played out. This one was pretty recent. All right, setup. Let's just replay it. Back to where we were on that day. All right, what am I targeting? That swing high. Sure, you could target these swing highs as well. All right, so if this is my target area, just based on that example framework, this is where I want to be entering, and this is my stop, right? This is September 12th lows. Now just watch how this played out. Right. Moves up off September 12th lows. Obviously, I have no idea that an announcement or a catalyst or anything like that's going to happen, but you're positioning into a coin where it's priced best, using kind of the entire market, alt market cap as a guide, right? Using these reference points as your best guide. Sure, when you look at a random chart, you could say, how is this support not just as valid? Or how is, this support not just as valid? Once you have a reference point or a cycle low, generally that date is more powerful. And I'll show another example, right? So that's the first one, nice little setup. 20, 30, 40%, and that's right where the move stops, right? My risk is also managed if it drops below. That's Mana. Another one that I played, this one was, what is this? This is MFT. All right, so let's take a look at MFT. We already showed cycle low for MFT right here, or it actually goes a little bit lower in August, but pretty much the same little 5% range, right? So for this setup, how am I setting it up? entering, that's my cycle low, September 12th or August, right in the 75, 73 sat area. My stop is right below, around 68 sats, right, giving myself a little bit of room below these cycle lows, below the cycle low support, and I'm aiming for around 108, 100 sats. Right, let's go back to how that played out. This is where we were for the setup, right? Entering, I want to be entering along cycle low. Right? How do I know that this support is valid versus this support, or drawing this support over and trying to enter here? Right? It's because that cycle low gives so much more validity, or gives more context as to whether or not price is actually depressed to where it's going to go. Right? Where am I aiming? The level that I picked was off the most recent swing high. Right? So I was looking for like 108 sats. I don't believe this one reached full target, but we'll see how it moved off cycle low. And now once again, right back at cycle low. So this one wasn't able to snag a full win, right? But a nice 20, 30% move higher. And now once again, it's setting up pretty much the exact same trade of I'd be stopped out if we go below our cycle lows. I want to be targeting at least these daily swing highs for another 20 or 30% move. It's just another example of one that didn't even reach full target, but it gives a really nice move off that cycle low support. Right? That's the second one. Third one, this one was really nice. We're going to look at RCN. Right? Another coin that showed cycle lows, continue to be the most important support for the last few months, and I still think they are in March. Right? So how am I setting this up? Here's my cycle low, all-time low support. I want to be entering in the 269, 270 to really 292 sat area. Right? Draw a falling wedge as well for the pattern traders. What am I aiming for? I'm aiming for this first swing high resistance up around 488 sats or 621 sats. Right? It's just that simple. And if cycle lows get broken, right, I'll be stopped out around here, right in the 240, 250 sat area. Right? It gives you a nice risk reward. So let's see how that one played out. I already showed how I draw this one up, right? As you look at the chart, just identify this is September 12th low. Right? Here's our September 12th low. That's where I'm drawing support from. So let's go back to what I was looking at that day. Right, here's our September 12th low. I want to be entering, get my scribbles out of the way. Right, I want to be entering right along that cycle low, or as close as I can to that cycle low support. Right, published on January 11th. So that's where we were. Where am I aiming? Up here. And my stop. Right, so my target, the swing high. Second target, up in the 600 sat area. Right, where am I stopping out if we actually get below our cycle low? I want to be entering in cycle low. And then I just sit, let the trade play out. We'll see how this one did. Right, another one off cycle low, 72x. Right, if it moves below cycle low, very clearly my risk is managed. So not only is it finding a play that I think has more potential to run until its next swing high target, right? It's finding that idea that's as depressed as most alts have been. If this is the bottom for 90% of alts and it's sitting right around its bottom, to me, that's one of the best priced coins. Also, my risk is managed. If it moves below there, right, I'll stop out. For the quick 5, 6, 7, 15, whatever you want to give yourself, percent loss, aiming for those first swing highs of a nice 70 or 2x play. Right, that's just another one that worked out in the past month or two. This last one I like a lot because it worked out twice, and we literally just saw it hit target for a second time today. So let's take a look at QuantStamp. Right, like every other example we've showed, right, we have our cycle low September 12th, draw it across. First setup I had for this one was back in, this would have been mid-December, end of December. All right, so let's show you how I'm setting this one up. All right, my entry, I want to be as close as I can to this cycle low support. All right, that's where I'm entering, aiming for at least the first swing high up here around 500 sats, stop below at around 355, right below our swing low, right below our cycle low, I should say. Right, here's our cycle low. I want to be entering at cycle lows. My stops are below this cycle low. Where am I aiming? I'm aiming for that first swing high, right in the 500 sat area. See how this one's played out a few times. hits target, right? Already, first play, 30%, right? Trade closed, and then playing, it literally worked again, right? If I have the exact same setup, just like MFT, it's kind of giving a second chance at cycle lows. You'll see it just played out again in this past week. All right, we're right back down to cycle lows. Where does it go? Right back up to first target. Right? So cycle low both times, and whether or not that actually works out, it's not my concern. I'm just trying to tilt kind of the odds in my favor of buying it where prices have been most depressed, where that support is key for almost every single alt. If it moves below that cycle low, I'll stop out. Where am I aiming for that first swing high? Right? QSP showing it worked 2 times in a row. Now we've seen like 4 or 5 in a row that it's worked, every single time. Clearly, any framework or any setup or any style isn't going to work for every single trade. Right? So I'm going to show you what it looks like when the setup fails. And the other reason why I think it's so important, not only is it identifying nice setups that have worked, but for the cycle low setups that don't work, the risk is very, very clearly identified and then also managed if you stick with the rule set. Right? So the example or the example framework, right? You have the alt trending down, it forms its cycle low, it runs up to a swing high, right? That's going to be my target. And as it's back down at this cycle low, this is where I want to be entering. If it breaks below there, I stop out. Obviously, I want it to get back to this target. So what does that look like for a coin I've actually traded? Right, here's key. And this is our September 12th support. All right, so as I'm dragging this support across, for January and February, I know that for key, just following the exact same rules of all the other setups that have worked, I want to be entering as close to 71, 72 sats as I can. And where am I aiming for key? I could see a few different targets. I think the one that I really want's up around 116 sats. I think kind of the smallest I would let it run is to around 95 or maybe 94 sats, right? So it's giving me a rough setup like this. Whenever you played it, whether it was January or February, I personally played it in January. Right, so let's take a look at this. This is a rough setup of, here's our cycle low support back in September 12th, right? That's where my eyes lock. So when I'm scanning a ton of charts, I see this one and right, it's sitting right along cycle low. Right? So all those other ideas have worked. I want to enter right along cycle low. Obviously, I want price to trickle up here, hit my sells, or to my second sells up here, right? That'd be ideal. That's how the cycle low framework's been working. But the other important thing, and the reason I like this, is it so clearly identifies of if this is the most depressed, this alt has been and 95% of other alts have been, right? If it drops below this cycle low, I'll stop out. So for me, that rule set is a daily close below that cycle low. Cycle low on this chart, 71 sats, right? So we'll see how this one played out. Moves up momentarily, and then it moves down, right? So right when it first closes, daily below our cycle low, I'll realize that stop, right, for 5-6% loss. Right, so there's going to be charts that look incredible, and NFT is one of them. LRC is another one that I'm trading right now. Right, not every single chart's going to look the exact same, but almost every single altcoin that I'm trading right now, you'll notice it's all clued in on September 12th, cycle low. This is where I want to be entering. Where do I want to be targeting? Right, swing highs. Right, MFT is another one, just like Key that I just showed, where it's looked great, and for some reason it just hasn't been able to kind of run to its full target. Right, so I'm not saying that MFT has to work, but just like with Key and just like with all the other setups, right, if I'm buying cycle lows, I'm aiming for at least first swing high or second swing high, or if you want to aim higher, that's fine. Right, and then my stop, very clearly or easy to identify, right? If it starts trading below this September 12th cycle low, right, below these cycle lows, I'll get stopped out. Right? It's just such an easy framework you can add to almost any idea, and I've showed time and time again how it's been working for me, for all the people that join my daily webinars, how it's been working for them. All those examples should give you guys a pretty good idea of what the cycle low framework is, right? I have the example picture right up here, and I know that looks so simple to some people. They're going to say, there's no way that can work, right? But literally just in this past week, we've had 2 more that hit, right? With QuantStamp, tons of other coins that are literally giving the exact same opportunity 2 times in a row. LRC is the one that's running right now for me, Right? So the general idea is all you have to do is be able to identify that September 12th cycle low support, understanding that alts move together, right? Some alts probably did trade lower than September 12th. That's fine. Right? This isn't going to be applicable to every single alt chart, but for most of them, it is, right? And it's something that I continue to use every single day. That's a really nice reference point of probably the most ideal support. So if I do see a coin sitting right down here at September 12th low, right, I want to be entering along September 12th low. I want to have my stop right below September 12th low, and I want to be targeting these swing highs. Right? And what that's doing is if you now look at a group of coins, let's say you look at 10 different alts, or someone just posted one on Twitter, there's one that you find attractive or whatever it is. Right? Now you can look at 2 or 3 of them, and even if one is, up here and one is down here, right? Even if you do take this trade, you can at least understand, right, where kind of the most important support is relative to this cycle. You can also understand that if you took this trade, it's not a guarantee that this one moves better. It's not, this one could actually move first. It is helping you understand, though, that this one is probably priced better. And if now the trend does start to change, let's say alts now drop lower, right? The percentage loss that you're going to take on a coin that's way higher than a cycle low, or already way up here above these first swing highs, right? Let's say that the bear market kicks back in and Bitcoin starts dropping and alts start dropping, right? The drop on some of the ones that are already way above their cycle lows are probably going to be pretty extreme, as opposed to something that's right here. It's going to be like the key example, right? Maybe it doesn't actually move for its target, but the loss, right? It's just barely going to move below its cycle low. I can stop out. My risk is managed, right? So it accomplishes 2 things. It's helping me manage risk and probably move into coins that I think are less risky, and that's huge, right? I know that people are getting more excited about alts right now and saying alt season. Regardless of alt season, you don't have to think about alt season anymore. Now, regardless of what the current market environment is, it's going to help you find setups, in my opinion, that I can take risk on, even if it isn't alt season, because when things turn, right, my risk is managed. Now, what it's also doing is it's also going to help you find nice setups and understand where your targets should be. And so not only is it helping with the upside, but I think the most important thing is it helps with the downside in a bear market, right? That is the basic idea of the cycle low framework. Please use it. I'm not ICT. I don't care if you use my words, my methods, anything. It's why I put it out here. Honestly, most people won't apply it anyways. For the 10% of you that do, I do hope it provides a ton of value. If you want more of these videos or the actual coins that I'm watching, tracking, looking at, a link is down below. You can join my daily webinars every single day. It's like the cost of a newsletter. If not, I'll continue putting out a bunch of free content on YouTube and Twitter as well. So don't forget to subscribe in that bottom left, bottom right corner. Like, comment, do whatever you have to. So that's all I have. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Reach out on Twitter if you did. I'll see you guys soon.